Will the measures to be announced by the Chancellor in just under an hour's time do anything to quell the unrest amongst Tory backbenchers? 3 MPs have so far said that they've submitted no confidence letters in the Prime Minister Liz Truss, and a number of others have been less than subtle about their intentions too. This comes as I learn that officers of the 1922 committee, those are the most senior executive members, are meeting later today to discuss the Prime Minister's future. Well, joining me now to talk about this in more detail is Benedict Spence, the political commentator and writer. Thank you for joining us, Benedict. First of all, it really does not seem like Liz Truss is Prime Minister in anything more than name. Is Jeremy Hunt running the show?
Jeremy Hunt and a few other people behind the scenes, yes. But ultimately, that's the state of play. I don't think Jeremy Hunt would have accepted the role of being her Chancellor, given the state that she was in, without getting most of the power as part of the deal. And, I don't think that Liz Truss is long for this world politically. And what we will have as a result of that remains to be seen. I mean, plenty of people were angry enough that Liz Truss became Prime Minister having just been put to a vote of Tory members. Well, this hasn't even been put to a vote of Tory members, and even in the in the leadership ballot amongst his own MPs, Jeremy Hunt wasn't especially popular. So whether or not this can do much to quell the discontent on the backbenchers, I mean, certainly I think that he'll have slightly more support than Liz Truss does at the moment. But realistically, it's a sorry state of affairs that the party finds itself in.
There's 3 MPs who've publicly called on Liz Truss to go. Many reports that there could be up to 3 figures who have privately said that she must go. What are the dynamics here in terms of letters being sent to Graham Brady? Because, of course, there is that immunity period of 1 year between leadership ballots.
Yes, and I don't think actually that the 1922 committee will be particularly keen to change its rules. It can do if it wants to, but I think that there will be, I think that that's more just a sort of an ominous looming threat that has hung over a prime minister to make it clear that the gig is up, to make it clear to say, well, one way or another you will be going. Don't try to make this too drawn out. Just toddle off because we say that you're not going to be able to get anything through Parliament. The cabinet doesn't support you. The party doesn't support you. But I do think in many ways it sort of shows a weakness within the Conservative Party itself. And I mean, we go back to the Boris Johnson period, and for months and months people were saying there are letters going in, are there enough, aren't there enough? But there just wasn't that sort of killer instinct. Nor would I say was there actually the confidence within a lot of the runners behind Boris Johnson to succeed him. Now, right now, I think actually we've got a similar sort of situation. We've got Jeremy Hunt who is effectively saying, I'm going to take charge of the situation. But I really don't think that he wants it sort of put up to a ballot of MPs or members. Nobody else is really throwing their hat into the ring. We have Penny Mordaunt, who was touted as a potential successor in the Telegraph today, saying we need to stand by the Prime Minister, presumably because either she knows that it would be very difficult to win a leadership contest were the rules to be changed, or because actually she just doesn't want to take over the mess that she'd be inheriting, which is even worse than it was under Boris Johnson. So the fact that you have only 3 that have come out publicly and said it, even though everyone knows this Prime Minister is toast, I think it shows actually just how unsound the party is, how shaky its own confidence is, that there isn't sort of the ballast for enough MPs to actually stick their head above the parapet and pull the trigger on what is already a premiership that is effectively over.
Well, of course, there's been so much commentary about how Liz Truss only managed to garner a third of the parliamentary party for votes in order to get through to that final 2. That commentary ignores the fact that Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt both also only managed to get around a third of the parliamentary party getting through to the final 2. It wasn't like the 2019 election where Boris Johnson had the overwhelming majority, or the 2017 election where Theresa May had the overwhelming majority. This was a very divided party before the leadership contest. No clear favourite, no one to coalesce around. Perhaps that's what's saving Liz Truss.
It was, and actually the party's been very divided for decades now. I know that people like to think that, a lot of Remainers especially like to say that Brexit was just, David Cameron's attempt to unify his party. But Brexit and the Europe question was just one issue of where the Conservative Party fault lines lie. Now, obviously, everybody knows the sort of the divide between Truss and Sunak. But there are other fault lines within the party as well. And this is the difficulty, of course, is that you might replace Liz Truss with another leader who ends up being just as unpopular. And I think we also do need to understand that part of what is done for Truss isn't necessarily just that she's unpopular with her own backbenchers. It's that actually she's become the Prime Minister at an incredibly volatile time in terms of international markets. It's, whilst the pound was plummeting against the dollar and everybody was sort of setting fire to their order papers and going, oh, it's a disaster, she's crashed the economy, similar things were happening across Europe as well. And since then, currencies have rallied. This is a situation where, almost on the flip of a coin, a Prime Minister could come off as economically incompetent or a genius if the currency happens to go the other way. That's how febrile I think the situation is. And so, if you were to stand or step forward and say, yes, that's right, I want to be leader of the Conservative Party, you are a hostage to fortune in a way that somebody like Boris Johnson just wasn't, because Boris Johnson, of course, built his brand, made it almost bulletproof over decades, to the point where he was able to sort of straddle all sides of the party because it was recognised he was electorally far more valuable than most of the other so-called big beasts.
Perhaps Boris Johnson is thinking, phew, at least I got removed before all of this took place. I suppose any Prime Minister who tried to do a sort of £200 billion potential spending package on energy would face similar market turmoil. Perhaps Boris Johnson's kicking his feet up and thinking, you know what, I might try and return once this is all past. But for now, Benedict Spence, thank you for joining us.